everyone, welcome to our channel Knowledge of. Friends, subscribe to our channel and click the bell icon for the latest update. Today we're going to start with your sociology class, and this is the 6th class, and hopefully if it is not exceeded more than 1 hour, so it will be the last class of sociology as well, where we had completed your unit 1 and that we had completed unit 2, unit 3 and unit 4 we had completed that is 98%, and the two one topic is been left for the unit 4 that has been exceeded more than an hour in the last class of 5. So we'll cover up that first, and then we'll start with the discussing about unit 5th, which is your visualizing the future, which is your models of industrialization that we'll discuss here. The name of the unit 5th we have is your visualizing the future models of industrialization here. So we'll go ahead, and first of all, it's a huge request from my side to all the viewers, please go through with the subscribe button and please like, share and subscribe our channel, so that many and maximum people can get the information at once, and even though you can also enjoy the video as well here. So let's go ahead with this, and that's what we have to talk about it here. In the same cases that what we have to talk about it, and we had done about the modifications of standing orders. We'll discuss definitions of certifying officers that we have to talk about it, that is of unit 4 I told you about, which we have to discuss here as well. We'll discuss about the unit 4, as I told you, we'll discuss about the definition of certifying officers. So that is your the definitions of certifying officers here. And this, that the certifying officers under the Standing Order Act means regional labor commissioner, and that is your labor commissioner or the other official appointed by the appropriate government by the notification in the official gazette, and that is to perform all or any of the functions certifying officer under act as well. We'll go ahead to discuss about the powers of certifying the officers here, that will talk about it, and which is in the same case with other one which we have to talk about it, and that is your powers of certifying, that is your officers. So in this here, that is for every certifying officers and appellate authority that shall have all the powers of civil court for the purpose of, like that we have a purposes, that is first is your that is receiving evidence here, and which is your receiving address, receiving evidence. The second we have is your administering oath. The third we have is your enforcing the attendance of witness. And the fourth we have is your compelling the discovery and productions of document. In this we'll talk about the moreover related to the another one, which is your payment of subsistence allowances. That in that here that is where any workman is suspended by the employer pending investigations or inquiry into the complaints or charge of misconduct against him, the empowered shall may pay to such workmen subsistence allowances, that at the rate of 50% of the wages which the employer is entitled to immediately preceding the date of such suspension, and for the 90 days of suspension as well, at the rate of 70% of such wages for a remaining period of suspension as well. In the same case, we'll talk about the offenses and penalties. And that is penalties here. In this, that is offenses and penalties, an employer fails to submit the draft standing order as required by the section 3, or who modified his standing orders otherwise with a second like 10, that shall be punishable with a fine which may be extends to rupees 5,000, and in cash in case of continuing the offense with the further fine which rupees that is 200 for every day after the first during that which the offense continues as well. An employer who does not act in contraventions of the standing order finally certified under this act for industrial establishment, that shall be punishable with a fine, and which may extend to rupees 100, and in case of the continuous offense with further fine of rupees 25 every day after the first during which the offense continues as well. No persecutions for any offense punishable under this section 13 that shall be instituted except that with the previous sanctions of the appropriate government, and it can be tried only in the court of the presidency magistrate or the second class magistrate as well. Now we'll talk about the unit 5th, which we have to talk about here is in the detailed about it, and that is we'll go ahead with unit 5. As I told you, the name of the unit itself, that is you're visualizing the future models of that is industrialization. In this we'll talk about it, and that is your unit 5th. So this is the remaining part which is left for the unit 4th here that we had discussed here in the detail. We'll start discussing about unit 5, which is your models of industrialization, that we have to talk about it. So the first question has been arise is what is that is collectivistic culture. Collectivistic culture. So in this, what is collectivistic culture? In this we talk about it where the collectivistic culture that emphasizes the need and the goal of the group as a whole over the need and desires of each individual, and in such cultures relationships with other members of the group and the interconnectedness that between people play a central role in each person's identity. Cultures in Asia as well, and that is the Central America, the South America, Africa trend that tend to be more collectivistic. And a few common traits of collectivistic cultures include like working as a group or supporting others is essential. People encouraged to do what's the best for society. Families and communities have a central role, and social rule focuses on promoting the selflessness and putting the community needs ahead of individual need as well. In the same case, in a collectivistic cultures, people are considered good if they are generous, helpful, dependable, and attentive to the needs of others. This contrasts with individualistic cultures that often place a greater emphasis on characteristics such as assertiveness and independence. A few countries that are considered the collectivistic includes Japan, China, Korea, Taiwan, Venezuela, Guatemala, Indonesia, Ecuador, and Argentina, Brazil, and India. These were the countries that are known as collectivistic countries as well, and they follow the collectivistic culture as well. So the other question that can arise is explain the anarchism in industry as well. So anarchism in industry, that we have to talk about it, which is here. So in the anarchism in industry that we talk about it, in anarchism in terms of where that the anarchism is generally defined as a political philosophy which holds the state to be undesirable, unnecessary, and harmful, or alternatively as opposing the authority and a hierarchical organization in the conduct of human relation, develop rules and systems to prevent centralizations of power in organization, criticism of a belief in individual ownership, private property, proposes ways of overcoming contradictions of capitalism as well as bureaucracy, attractive forms of employment with automatically draw support, and no need of violent revolution that comes under the anarchisms in India as in industry as well. We'll talk about moreover related to this, that is the other question, which is what does a free market system mean? We have to tell about it. What is a free market system? That what we talk about it. So here we go ahead as well. Free market mean. So in what does a free market system mean, that we talk about it, and that is in the same cases here. For that, there is no government interference or a monopoly price setting in free market system. The exchange of goods and services between the suppliers and consumer is voluntary, and all the business arrangements are decentralized. Consumers are free to make their economic and financial decisions, whereas suppliers offers their product and services based on demand. On the other hand, that economists insist that there is no free market in the real world. The free market system is more theoretical concept, as governments always put some type constraints in the allocations of resources and the exchange of goods and services. An example is the minimum wages that are set by the many governments around the world. Let's have an example, like a free market like the United States regulates itself by allowing the firm to set their prices. It allows businesses to seek new growth opportunities, providing them with an incentive to realize a higher profit. As a result, the competition gets more intense and firm and competing in the perfect competition setting, example wages rate as well. In the same case, we'll go ahead and further, that is your in the related to that question, that is what are the effects of industrializations on the environment. So we'll talk about it, and that is your effects of industrialization on the environment. Effects of industrialization on the environment. So effects of industrialization on the environment, that we talk about it in this, that the impact of industrializations on the environment has led the way with a certain that positive and a large negative outcomes with progressive rates and inventions, that the global warming here with the same cases that we have here, and the global warming and a greenhouse effect, that as a result that are the results, which is massive impact of industrialization on the environment, and a constant air and water pollutions are affecting the quality of our human lives with its harmful pollutants as well. The impact of industrialization on the environment that need to be emphasized with more intensity and a feeling, as the world is quietly but surely facing the destructions from man-made that is follies as well. For example, did you know that that in three that is in the Palisavia and that Palesnavia river basins, that there is a growing populations in mutated fish, male fish that have female parts and vice versa, open sores and unusual blotches on their bodies, and this is because extreme animal mutilation. Tons of dead birds, farm and animals and fishes have become a common occurrence around the world in the past 5 years. That is, following are the effects of the industrializations on the environment here. The first we'll talk about is your pollution. In terms of pollution, that industrializations normally add to pollution in air, water and soil due to the waste product it produces, and that the second we have is your extraction. In extraction, the industrialization make use of resource, raw materials from the land, water, perhaps wood and plant, fossil fuels, etc. This has an effect on the environment since demand for all these goes up and more quantities are extracted from the land as well. Talking about the third one, which is urbanization. In urbanization, the industrialization needs people to work in factories here, and so people move from rural agriculture areas that are spread out to industrialized cities that are concentrated, and a higher population puts added pressure on the local environment as well. We'll talk about the fourth one, which is your waste material. In waste material here, that the industrialization produce a greater amount of waste, both directly as a result of productions of goods as well as the disposals of those goods once their purpose has been served. For example, if the factory makes plastic furniture, it produces a waste plastic. So finally, that there is a possible long-term beneficial impact. Industrialization adds to the wealth of society and makes a greater quantity of goods available at low cost, and thus uplifting the lives of many as well. We'll go ahead with other question which is related to the cultural issues. In that we will discuss about explain various cultural issues as well, and that we go ahead here. And that is various cultural issues. So in various cultural issues that we talk about it, which is the first in that the industrializations of the world changed the manner in which people lived, and the way societies interacted in the variety of way, including the quality of life, economic power, and political that is repercussion. The landscape of the world moved from the primary that agrarian culture to mechanical. The new industrializations required people to rethink the cultural norms, and challenge the government to adapt to the new way of life as well. Socially, the first is that socially, industrialization changes a country in many ways. Typically, there come to be less security for workers and less continuity with the past. People move to cities, breaking family that ties as well. Time is more regimented, making it harder to observe the traditional festival as well. This created a several problem for the working class. Living conditions during the early phase of industrialization were poor. Cities unable to handle the influx of workers, hastily erected that poorly constructed and crowded apartments buildings or other residents as well. The workers often lived close to the factories and were surrounded by the pollution more often than not, and the work was also dangerous with a little government oversight on new industries. Workers having yet to form union had little bargaining power with managers, leaving the workers vulnerable to unsafe conditions as well. Where in the same case, the industrialization expanded the middle class as worker that could become a skilled or semi-skilled in industry. The competition among the factories also allowed moderate skilled workers to move easier, providing a measure of economic independence. The middle class had the benefit of expendable income for many, and this was that used more for entertainment and comfort than ever before, and creating a new consumer demand driven market as well. So gave the working class more free time. The free time and the closer association with the neighbors drove the creations of the entertainment industry as a viable market. The darker side of the growing population in cities was racial tensions and the gang violence as well. We'll talk about in a detail about it. So now we'll discuss about the other and the last question of the session of unit 5 only, because the unit 5 is very small and that it concludes more than 7, not more than 7 questions, so that we deal with it. And that is the name of the unit, as I told you, about the visualizing the future, that is model of industrialization. So we will discuss the another and the last question, that is your define consumer society and its advantages. So consumer society and its advantages, that we deal with it. Consumer society and its advantages. So in the consumer society and its advantages here, that the consumer society refers to the society where people think that spending money on goods and services is very important. Consumerism is a social and economic order based on fostering a desire to purchase goods and services in ever greater that amounts, and today's consumption is undermining the environment resource bases as well. It is that is your exacerbating inequalities and the dynamics of the consumption, poverty, inequality, environment nexus are accelerating. We consume variety of resources and products today, having moved beyond basic needs to include luxurious items and technological innovation to try to improve efficiency. Such consumption that beyond a minimal and a basic need is not necessary, and that a bad thing in or itself, as throughout history we have always sought to find a way to make our lives a bit easier to live as well. We'll talk about advantages as well, that is advantages of consumer society. Nowadays the consumer society evolved in the true sense of the word, and the people buy more and more product day by day. This is because people are becoming more needed, and I partially agree with the consumer society, and it has many disadvantages as advantages. One advantage is that you can choose from a large variety of products and you don't have to eat the same meal every day. For example, you can buy 30 different types of jellies in the supermarket. Another advantage is that you can buy the product directly from the market, not as it was a previous ages when you had to go all the hard work, and for example like the shepherds had to extract the cheese from animals, etc. Where another advantages is that you save time by buying, but as well as this is disadvantages because you save time but you don't save the money. Probably the biggest disadvantages is that we spend a large amount of money in buying products instead of making them at home. For example, the homemade food is healthier than the food we buy from the supermarket or fast food. Once you start buying, you won't stop, or worse, you might become a shopaholic, that is shopaholic as well. So here I will end up with this unit 5th, and that is your visualizing this future and models of industrialization. Now there are many things that to be discussed. We will discuss many of the questions papers as well, and hopefully we'll discuss more than a 10 years questions papers here itself in this class only. So there are some topics which we have discussed in durations of your this examinations that we had discussed your units as well, but some of this maybe there are the out of syllabus courses or the courses that they had asked you this the paper that they had asked you beyond that, so that we'll discuss here. For that there are the many questions that attempt any 4 parts of the following here. The questions we have itself, that is how does sociology differs from psychology and anthropology, even though we had discussed that. And other than that, if I'm talking about here, which is the another question, the second question, to describe in the brief, that is Navratna companies of India here as well. That what we have to talk about it. That is the questions there that has been asked of that is of 14 marks, and there are the 4 parts of the following each. And the other question has been asked in your find and discuss the role of the socio-psychology in industrial context, and that other question is that how does sociology differ from industrial sociology, explain, that we had done in unit 3rd. And the other question is what is the role of social stratifications in India industries. The other question is how do informal groups affect the social structures of any industry, explain. The other question is attempts 2 parts of the following, which has been of that is your 12 marks here. So that is we have each that is being asked here, that is of 3 marks. So define industrialization and list the characteristics of industrialization. Explain the factory system and its characteristics, that we even to discuss in this your unit 5th as well, and unit 2nd that we had discussed here, and that is another one we will discuss here. That is another question that we have, and which is your that is your what are the causes and consequences of industrialization, and that we had even though discussed about it, that is in unit 2 of that we had discussed. The other question has been that attempt any two parts of the following, and that has been asked for 12 marks, and which is of each that you have to answer it out is of 6 marks as well, where the question is explain the role of states to promote and develop the small scale industries. The other is to explain the major provisions of Industrial Policy Resolution 1991 in detail, which is unit 3rd. We had discussed about it, discuss the major milestones in industrial development in India, which we have to discuss here, and attempt the two parts of the following, which has been asked of 12 marks, and that is 6 marks each, and that is what is the role of works committee that in grievances handling procedure, which we had discussed in unit 4. Describe the conciliations, arbitrations and adjudications process in industrial relation, which we had done in unit this is your unit 5 here, and discuss the major provisions under the Industrial Employment and Standing Orders Act, which we had done in unit 4 as well. The other we'll talk about it, which is another question paper, and that is define 4 parts of the following, where 3.5 each, and that is the first question is difference between sociology and anthropology, which is of unit 1 here. The other is explain the merits and demerits of bureaucracy as of chapter 1, and describe the Navratna companies of India, which has been repeated in this as well. Write a short note on workers' participation in management, which is of unit 1. Salient features of Indian Factories Act, that's 1948. Explain scope of industrial sociology of chapter unit 1 here itself, that we had discussed. Other question that we have to attempt the 2 parts of the following, where 6 marks each. The question is define industrialization and point out its impact on institutions as well. The other question is that state that the provision relating to the 3-tier system of adjudications under the Industrial Dispute Act 1947, which also has also been asked in your unit 4, and that is the another one is to trace the history of the trade union movement in India. Other question, the 2 parts of the following we have to talk about it, which is of 6 marks each, and we are give the classification of industries as per the Industrial Policy Resolution 1956 from unit 3rd. What is conflict, and with the help of any 2 strategies discuss how you will handle the conflict at workplace. And the other is to discuss the salient features of Provident Scheme 1952 as well, that has been asked of here itself, that is of 6 marks. So now we'll go ahead to attempt any 2 parts of the following, that is what is grievances, write the formal grievances procedures and handle it. This is from unit 4. What are the tripartite and bipartite machineries, and what is the difference between the 2 bodies, and that has been asked from unit 4. And the other is what is the strike, explain the various types of strikes and their reasons, which is of unit 4 as well. We'll go ahead with the other that question paper that we have to discuss here as well as. So as we discuss the other question paper that we have to discuss here as well, which is the difference between sociology and anthropology, explain the merits and demerits of bureaucracy, and describe the Navratna companies of the India, and write a short note on workers' participation in management, salient features of Indian Factories Act 1948, explain scope of industrial sociology. And the other question that we have to do it is of 6 marks, and in that same case that to define industrialization and point out its impact at its institutions as well, where in the same case state the provisions relating to the 3-tier system of adjudications that under the Industrial Dispute Act 1947, which we had discussed in unit 4. and to trace the history of the trade union movement in India. And the other is to attempt the two parts of the following, where give the classification of industries as per the Industrial Policy Resolution 1956, and that other is what is conflict. With the help of any two strategies, discuss how you will handle conflict at workplace, discuss the salient features of Provident Scheme 1952, and the other question that we have to do two parts which of 6 marks each, and that is what is grievances, give a formal grievances procedure to handle it, and the other is what are tripartite and a bipartite machineries, what is a difference between the two bodies as well, which we had done in this last unit as well. And then we'll discuss about what is a strike, explain the various types of strikes and their reasons as well, so that what we have to discuss in the chapter 4 that we had discussed here. In other cases, we are dealing with the question paper, which is your the section A consists of 2 marks each year, and that what we have to talk about it, that is to define industrial sociology, what is class struggle, and explain feudal system, and what is MRTP Act, and what is trade union. Then we have to attend 3 parts of each, which has been of 5 marks each. What is the contribution of the Karl Marx in the development of industrial sociology, which we had done in unit 1, and what do you mean by the factory system, what are in characteristics as well, that we had done in unit 2, and write down the various causes of industrialization in India, which we have discussed about in unit 2, and define industrial policy, what are the main objectives of the India's industrial policy as well, that we had done in unit 3rd as well. And the other question has been arises your what are the various functions of trade union in Indian industry today. And in the section 3, that is we have to do it here, and that is each conclude of 5 marks each. So that is your what do you mean by the grievances, why is grievances handling procedure needed, and the second question, what do you mean by the strike and lockout, and what is difference between the two. So that both the questions we had done in unit 4. And another one, which is you attempt any one part, and that is your Max Weber was a great sociologist comment, that has been we had discussed in unit 1, and how does industrial sociology differs from industrial psychology as well. And the other question that has been arise here, which is that what we have to discuss, and what has been here in, and that what has been the impact of industrialization on the status of the women in India, what role has industrialization played in India's growth. And the other question is write in detail the various impact of industrialization on Indian society. The other is what do you mean by industrial disputes, what were the various causes of industrial disputes, give suitable examples, that we had discussed in unit 4. The other is you to attempt all the sections of the questions, and that has been asked here, which is of all 3 marks each, and that is what is urbanization, what is globalization, defined trade union, and what is a minimum wage act, and what is code of discipline, which is of unit 4 here as well. In other one, that is your 3 parts of each, which we have to discuss each 5 marks consist of, which is to discuss the nature and scope of industrial sociology, what is the impact of industrialization on Indian women, a brief history of industrialization in India, and define industrial disputes, what were the various causes of industrial disputes in India as well, that we talk about it, which has been asked in unit 4 as well. That is attempt all the questions of the sections of sections C, that we have to talk about it, which is to explain the role of the Hawthorne experiment in the development of industrial sociology, or what is the principle of industrial organization, that has been asked for 5 marks each. What are the various factors responsibility of the industrialization in India, and what is the feudal system, write down the characteristics of Indian feudal system. Other is your attempt any one part of the following, write a short note on industrial policy of 1991 stating major provisions of this policy, and what do you mean by Raghunathan, that is PSCs, write down its least 5 names of Indian Navratna PSCs as well, that has been asked of 5 marks each. The other is write a short note on standing order, which is Industrial Employment Act 1946, and that has been asked of Unit 4. And what do you mean by grievances? What are the various grievances handling procedure, which is also been asked of Unit 4 here. We will go ahead with further one, which is another question paper that what we have to discuss here, and that is to be as follows, which is what is industrial conflict, that we had talked about it, which has been asked in Unit 4. And explain liberalizations of standing order, write any 4 causes of industrialization from Unit 2, mention the role of the rebel court for solving disputes, and what is grievances committee, which is from Unit 4 as well. The other question that has been arise here, which is attend the 3 questions of the sections, like define industrial sociology, discuss its importance in industry, that is today, which has been asked in Unit 1. What is impact of industrialization on a caste system, write a brief history of industrialization in ancient India, define industrial disputes, what were the various causes of industrial disputes in India, which is from Unit 4 and Unit 3 respectively. The other section, section C, where the question we have explained the role of the Hawthorne experiment in the development of the industrial sociology. That question has been repeating, and that is from Unit 1 here. And explain the nature of the scope of the industrial sociology, that has also been repeated. That has been asked of 5 marks each. And the other question is explain the registration process of that is your trade union organization. What is feudal system, write down the characteristics of Indian feudal system, which is of 5 marks each. The other question is 5 marks each. Write a short note on industrial policy of 1956, stating major provisions of this policy. What do you mean by Navratna PSCs, and write down at least 5 names of Indian Navratna PSCs, that is also been asked of 5 marks. Describe in brief the provisions of Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946. What do you mean by grievances? What are the various grievances handling procedure, which is also from Unit 4 here. We'll discuss moreover, that is another question, and the another question paper, which is describe in brief in the Navratna companies in India, that has been asked of 3.5 marks each. And what is grievances, from Unit 4 we had done it. And a difference between the bipartite and a tripartite agreement in industrial relation, which is from Unit 4. What are guilds and how do they help in promoting industry, Unit 2. How can a management prevent strikes, and if write down the causes of grievances, and discuss the impact of the industrialization on workplace, economy and society, from Unit 3. What do you know about early industrialization? Give a brief account during the ancient and a medieval period. What was the impact of factory system here, that is of each here, that is of 6 marks. The other question is your write a note on industrial policy 1956 here, and that is how did it change in that the profile of the Indian industry scene, which is from Unit 3 as well. And that is the another one, that is we have to talk about it, which is you write a brief note on a Gandhi on concept of industrialization, write down the salient features and objectives of industrial policy 1981 from Unit 3. Attempt any one part where the state the Industrial Employment Standing Orders Act 1946 from Unit 4 of 6 marks each, and discuss the conciliation attributes and adjudication process in industrial relation from Unit 4, and comment the statement industrial relations are the joint responsibilities of workers, employers and the government. The other question paper we solve it out, which is how does sociology differ from psychology, that is from Unit 1. And what do workers join trade union, and define Max Weber's bureaucracy from Unit 1. What are the joint management council, explain the causes of labor unrest in India. And the question is your that is to define industrialization, give an account of consequences of industrialization from Unit 2. Explain the guild system and a putting out system from Unit 2, and that has been write an explanatory notes on the Brevenson's labor's process theory. What is meant by factory system, what are its features, that is from Unit 2. Examine the impact of industrialization on religion and morality in India, which is from Unit 2. In section C, we had done, that is, you're right, the what are the major objectives of new industrial policy 1991, which is from unit 3, and explain the aims and the flows of industrial licensing policies in the system as well, and that is that 60s as well. And the other is your to what are the essentials of good grievances procedure discussed in brief, 5 marks each. And industrial, that piece is that prerequisite of industrial growth of the nation, comment on the statement. The another one, we have 5 marks each here, which is that the question is what steps should be taken to promote industrial harmony in India. Discuss why has that voluntary arbitration failed in India, and give reason. This is also 5 marks each. Now the other question that has been asked of 10 marks each, what is meant by model standing order? Are these orders applicable to all establishment? What is the scope of their application? Unit 4. What are the causes of industrial disputes in India? Discuss the various economic causes of industrial disputes, which is from Unit 4. The other question paper of section A, that is your discuss the nature of scope of industrial sociology, from Unit 1. What do you mean by slum? That is, what is code of discipline, from Unit 4. What is minimum wage act? What is urbanization? What is impact of globalization under the industry? These all are has been asked of 3.5 each here. The other we have is we have to attempt two parts of the question. The question is, give the brief history of industrialization in India. What this is from Unit 2, Unit 3. What do you mean by the strike? What are the various causes of strike? This is from Unit 4. Write the detailed the industry policy resolution 1956, and that is from Unit 3. The other question is from that you have to do it the two parts of the attempt, two parts of the following, and which is of each 6 marks. That is, explain the concept of factory system, write down the characteristics of factory system, also brief the impact of industrial revolutions on factory workers, explain the role of the Hawthorne experiment in the development of industrial sociology, write down the meaning of the importance of trade union in India. Other question is the two parts of the question we have to do it, that is, you define grievances. What are the various causes of grievances? What do you mean by the Navratna PSCs, and write down the least 5 name of the Navratna PSCs. Explain in detail the major provisions of industrial policy in 1991, which is of from unit 3rd as well. The other question that we have to talk about, another question paper will deal with it. So here some of the question which they had asked you out of the syllabus, so that will also will discussed here as well. So the questions paper is consisting of 100 marks, and that is of 3 hours. So the instructions is that attempt all the parts, all the section carry equal marks, write down the answer to each section in a short. So that has been the short questions, which is of asking of 2 marks, that is each here, and there are 10 questions here to be solved it out. So we'll go ahead, and that is the question we have, which is what is industrial sociology? What is industrial sociology, which we had done in unit 1 here. The other question is what are guilds? This is with in unit 3rd, unit 2nd, and the other is your industrial piece that we had not discussed, and even though that has been asked, so we'll discuss here as well. So what do you mean by industrial piece here? They are defined industrial piece. So industrial piece is a state in industrial relation in which both employer and employee that abstained from industrial action such as strike and lockout. Industrial peace implies the existence of harmonious relation between the management and workers. When the relationship between them are not cordial, industrial atmosphere is not peaceful, such a situation is called industrial unrest. Okay, so that is all about industrial peace here. The other question is define adjudication, which we had done in unit 4. What are the causes of industrial disputes, which from unit 4. How can code of discipline that be applied in the individual's life? That is also, so the code of conduct for the individual's life, that what we have to talk about it. So that we'll go ahead here. Code of conduct for individual's life. So code of conduct, that is for individual's life, if I am talking about here, and that is for this case, any individual that can achieve a respect and a good relation in society by following the given rules of conduct. Like the first is that every individual must behave in a respectful and professional manner in all dealing related to their employment, whether dealing with other employee, supplier, consultant, or the members of the public. Individual must be fair, honest, and in compliance with the law in all business relationship. Discrimination against any employee or individual involved in daily business dealing is prohibited. The other we have is your that we have to talk about it. So here we talk about it, which is individual must be fair, honest, and in compliance with the law of all business relationship. And the other we have that the discrimination against any employee or individual involved in daily business dealing is prohibited, and that is your harassment of any kind of nature, including the sexual harassment, is prohibited. Any individual shall not take any document, paper, report, file, computer disk that from the company premises without the permissions of its supervisor as well. We'll talk about the other question, that is to discuss the various objectives of industrial policy from Unit 3. What is bipartite agreement different from the tripartite agreement? How it is different from it? So that is from Unit 4. How Max Weber's contributions on bureaucracy can apply it? That is from Unit 1. Discuss the manorial or a feudal system, which is from Unit 2 as well. We'll talk about the other one. This is the section B. We have to talk about it, and where we have to talk about the 5 question each, and that is of each is your of 10 marks. That is what is the difference between strikes and lockout from Unit 4. What is grievances? Explain the grievances handling procedures in detail of Unit 4. What steps should be taken to promote the industrial harmony in India? So we'll talk about industrial harmony here. Industrial harmony. So in the industrial harmony here, that is industrial harmony is a situation where the employees and management cooperate willingly and for the company's commercial objectives. Industrial harmony creates a high level of employee and management satisfaction. In the same case, the steps for promoting the industrial relation, if I'm talking about, so the following measures that should be taken to achieve a good industrial relation, so that we'll talk about here itself. Steps for promoting industrial relation, that we talk about it. So we'll go ahead with one by one steps in each over here. That is that the following manner that should be taken to achieve a good industrial relation, and for that we have a first one as your sincere implementations of agreement. So in sincere implementations of agreement here, where the management should sincerely implement the settlement reached with the trade union, and the agreement between the management and the union should be enforced both in letter and spirit as well. We'll talk about the second one, which is your environment mutual trust. In environment mutual trust here, where both management and labor that should help in the development of the atmosphere of the mutual cooperation, confidence and respect, and management that should adopt to progressively outlook and should recognize the rights of workers. Similarly, labor unions should persuade their members to work for the common objective of the organization as well. The third we have is your strong and stable union. Strong and stable unit here, that the employers that can easily ignore a weak union on the plan that it hardly represents the workers, and therefore there must be a strong and stable union in every enterprise to represent the majority of worker and negotiate with the management about the terms and conditions of services as well. Talk about the fourth one, which is the workers' participation in management. Workers' participation in management. In this, that the participations of workers in the management of the industrial unit that should be encouraged by making effective use of works committee, joint consultations, and the other method as well. We'll talk about the other one, which is your that is your fifth one, which is your mutual accommodation. In mutual accommodation, here that in any organization there must be a great emphasis on mutual accommodation rather than conflict or uncompromising attitude. The approach must be a mutual give and take rather than a take or leave. The management should be willing to cooperate rather than blackmail the workers. So we'll go ahead with the sixth one, which is sound personal policy. In sound personal policy, here that the following points should be noted regarding the personal policies. The policies should be formulated in consultation with the workers and their representatives, clearly stated so that there is no confusion in the mind of anybody, and implementation of the policy should give a fair treatment to each other. Now we'll talk about the seventh one, which is your government's role. In terms of government's role, that the government should play an active role for promoting that industrial peace, and it should make law for compulsory recognition of the representative union in each unit and individual unit, and it should intervene to settle the disputes if the management and the workers are unable to settle their disputes. This will restore the industrial harmony as well. Now we'll talk about the other question, that is how does industrial peace is prerequisite in industrial growth of nation. So that we'll talk about it. How industrial peace is prerequisite in industrial growth of a nation. In this, if I'm talking about the industrial relations are necessary and desirable for maintain the cardinal relation between the labor and management, and maintenance of the harmonious industrial relation is one vital importance for a survival and a growth of industrial enterprises. Good industrial relation results in increased efficiency and hence prosperity, reduced turnover, and other your increased tangible benefits of the organization. The significance of industrial relations that can be summarized to be as follows. The first we have is industrial relation improves morale of the workforce. Industrial relation improves morale of the workforce. So in this, that a good industrial relation that built in mutual cooperations and common agreed approach motivate one to contribute one's best, results in the higher productivity and hence income, so give more job satisfactions and help improve the morale of the workers as well. Talk about the second one, which is industrial relations establish industrial democracy. Industrial relation establish industrial democracy. So industrial relation established Indian industrial democracy here. The industrial relation means settling employees' problems through the collective bargaining, mutual cooperations, and mutual agreement amongst the parties, that is, the management and the employees union, and this helps in establishing the industrial democracy in the organization, which motivates them to contribute their best to the growth and prosperity of the organization as well. We'll talk about the third one, which is industrial relation ensures optimum use of scarce resources. Industrial relation ensures optimum use of scarce resource. So in this, that is where the good and harmonious industrial relations create a sense of belongingness and group cohesiveness among workers, and also congenial environment resulting in less industrial unrest as well. We'll talk about the fourth one, which we have is your industrial relation contribute to economic growth and development. So in this, that is your the good industrial relation led to the increased efficiency and hence higher productivity and income. This will result in economic development of the economy as well. In the same case, the industrial peace is not only find out the ways and means to solve the conflict or to settle the differences, but also to secure that unreserved cooperations of and goodwill among the different groups in industry, with them to view that drive their energies and interests towards economically viable, commercially and feasible, financially profitable and socially desirable channels. So we can conclude that goods industrial relations are always fruitful to all of the three parties, that is employers, our state or nation as well. With the same cases, we'll discuss the other question, that is to discuss the factory system and its feature, which we had done in unit 2. The other question is your to describe the labor that is your labor tribunals in industry and how these tribunals support industrial peace, which we had discussed in unit 4. And the other question is that how has the objectives of industrial policy helped to today's business associations as well, and that will discussed here as to be follows here in the detail about it. So the questions we have is about the objectives of industrial policy that helped today's business association. So that what we have to talk about it here. And in the same case, we have to go ahead as well. So in the same cases here, that the industrial policies continue to play a central role in that inducing the industrial transformation and diversification and upgrading that towards more resilient and competitive as well as environmentally friendly and society inclusive industries. And the main objective of the industrial policy is to anticipate the structural change, facilitating it by removing the obstacles and correcting for the market failure. And the key objective in this regard include expanding existing manufacturing capacities, engaging in new industries, creating a new linkage, improving productivity, and participating is more dynamic world market segment as well. That has been said by the Lauridinson. That is your 2010, Pack and Psyche in 2006 as well, where the industrial diversification strategy is aimed at shifting into the new industries, which is inter-industry structural change, thus referring to the nurturing of the hetero and non-existent manufacturing activities. that is industrial expansions and upgrading strategies focuses on existing manufacturing activities and comprises the capacity expansion, product upgrading, process upgrading, and functional upgrading that industrial structures change. Industrial deepening that strategies aims at creating a more backward and a forward linkage and complementarities within one industry, which is intra-industry structural chain. When designing industrial policies, the governments have to decide which existing manufacturing industry they want to strengthen and which new industry they want to stimulate, and in which industry they want to improve the internal integrations of existing manufacturing operations. And modern thinking on industrial policy is characterized by its process orientation and by placing the interaction between the actors at the center of this process as well. So here we go ahead with further question that what we have to talk about it here. So we will talk about the other question, that is to briefly explain the categorizations of industries provided Industrial Policy Resolution 1948, and that we go ahead as well. That is your categorization of industries provided Industrial Policy Resolution 1948. In this, that the Government of India announced its Industrial Policy Resolution, which is IPR, and on 6th April 1948, whereby both public and private sector were involved toward industrial development. According to the industries were divided into the four broad categories, and the four broad categories that we have, the first category is your exclusive state monopoly. In exclusive state monopoly here, that this includes the manufactures of arms and ammunitions as well, and productions and controls of atomic energy, and ownership and management of railway transport. These industries were exclusive monopoly of the central government. The second we have is which is that is state monopoly of union as new state as well. So state monopoly for new units. So in this, that this category includes coal, iron and steel, aircraft manufacture, shipbuilding, manufacture of telephones, telegraphs and wireless apparatus, excluding the radio receiving sets and minerals oil. New undertaking in this category could henceforth that be undertaken only by the state as well. We'll talk about the C1, the third one which we have is your state regulation. In state regulation, this category included industries of such basic importance like machines, tools, chemicals, fertilizers, non-ferrous metal, rubber manufacture, cement, paper, newsprint, automobiles, electric engineering, etc., which the central government would feel necessary to plan and regulate. The fourth we have is your unregulated private enterprises here, which is unregulated private enterprise. That is that the industries in this category were left open to the private sector, individual as well as cooperative, where government were to exercise only an overall general control here as well. In the same case, the other section C we have is that is what is industrial conflict, explain in brief. That has been we had done in unit 4, which is of here, that is of 15 marks. The other question is that is how the industrial disputes can be tackled in present environment. That has been done in unit 4 as well as of 5 marks. We'll talk about the another question, which is to evaluate the impact of industrial licensing policy. That will go ahead here. Impact of industrial licensing policy. So in impact of industrial licensing policy, that what we have to talk about it here in the detail, which is industrial licensing policy was able to fulfill the objectives of balanced regional development. The objective of the policy was to provide licensing for more establishment for the lagging sector and controlling of more establishment in leading sectors by denying the license that to them as well. Licensing policy was intended to regulate the private sector, regulations of industrial investments and productions according to the planned priorities as well. We'll talk about the objectives here as well. In terms of objectives that we talk about it, that the objectives of industrial licensing policy, that we have to go ahead in this, that is the objective of industrial licensing policies are given below, like the protections of small entrepreneurs against competitions from large industries, prevention of monopoly and concentrations of ownership of industries, balance regional development with a view to reducing the disparities in the level of the development of different regions of the country, development and control of the industrial investment and production, checking the concentrations of economic power, promoting the technological advancement, ensuring the balanced regional and development, and encouraging new entrepreneur as well. Now we'll talk about, which is the another one, is your impact of industrial licensing that we have. Impact of industrial licensing policy. So in impact of industrial licensing policy, that we have to talk about it in that is your impact of licensing policies that to be discussed here as to be follows, where we have that we are dealing with, which is the registrations of existing industrial unit. Registration of existing industrial unit. In this, that is the industrial licensing provisions were first designed in Industrial Development and Regulation Act 1951, and in existing industrial units which were existing before the enforcement of this act and that are converted under the industrial licensing will have to obtain the registrations under this act. The next we have is your location of industrial unit. In location of industrial unit, that is if any industrial unit that wants to here that to change its location, and that then it will have to take the approval of the concerned authority as well, and that is in the same cases an industrial license is required for the project which are located in the large cities with the productions of more than 10 lakhs, and only after obtaining the approval that a location that can be changed as well. The other we have is you're producing the articles reserved in small scale industries. So in producing articles that are reserved in small scale industries, in this here, that is we can say that if any industrial undertaking wants to manufacture goods reserved for the small scale sector, it is required to obtain the industrial license, and the list of the items reserved for small scale industries is reviewed from time to time, and in October 2008 that 21 that items were reserved for the small scale sector as well. We'll talk about the another one here as well that we have to be followed here. So the next we have is your substantial expansion of production capacity. So in this, under the industrial licensing policy, if any industrial unit which is covered under the license unit of substantially expand in the production, its production capacity, then it will have to obtain a prior approval under this act, and substantial expansion increases in production capacity beyond 25% of existing of licensed capacity as well. We'll talk about the another one, which is your setting up of new industrial units. In this, we have is, if the industry is to be set up in the category of licensed industry, it has to obtain the license under the Industries Development and Regulation Act 1951. While setting up the industrial unit not covered under the compulsory licensing, it has to file a memorandum of information with the Department of Industries if the value of investment in plant and machinery of such units is above rupees 10 crore as well. Now we'll talk about another question that we have is your describe the standing orders, and are these orders applicable to all establishment? What is the scope of their application? That has been we had discussed in unit 4. The other is to discuss the causes of consequences of industrialization, which we had done in unit 2, and thus discuss the importance of code of disciplines and industrial productivity that we had discussed in unit 4 as well. So here we'll end up with, and there are 2 to 3 question papers more that will be discussed, that we'll discuss in the next coming class. So in terms of sociology, if I'm talking about here in the terms of sociology, that we had done even the unit till unit 5, and that is in unit 1, that is your industrial sociology, where we had discussed about nature, scope of importance of industrial sociology, social relation in industry, social organization in industry, bureaucracy, scientific management, and human relation. In unit 2, which is rise and development of industry, which is your early industrialism, types of productive systems, the manorial or feudal system, the guild system, the domestic or operating out system, and a factory system, characteristics of the factory system, causes and consequences of industrialization as well, and the obstacles to and limitations of industrialization here. In unit 3rd, which is your industrialization in India, which we have to cover up the industrial policy resolution 1956, science, technology and innovations policy of India 2013 as well. Unit 4, we have to discuss about the contemporary issues, which is grievances and grievances handling procedures, industrial dispute, causes and strikes and lockouts, preventive machineries of the industrial dispute, schemes of workers, participation in management, worker committee, and collective bargaining, bipartite, tripartite agreement, code of discipline, standing orders and labor's code, and industrial tribunals as well. In unit 5th, we have to discuss about it, which is your visualizing the future model of industrialization, collectivistic, anarchist, free market, environmentalist, etc., cultural issues, consumer society, and social concerns that we all had discussed about it. And even though we are dealing with the question paper, that we will solve it out as well. So here it's a huge request from my side to all the viewers, please go through with the subscribe button, and please like, share and subscribe our channel, so that maximum and many people can understand and can go ahead as well. And in other than sociology, we'll complete it in the next class soon. And we are dealing with reasoning, where we had completed the verbal reasoning, and we had started with your non-verbal reasoning, where we had covered up the series and analogy we had started with, and surely we'll complete that as well. We are dealing with the quantitative aptitude, where we had completed the operations on numbers, LCM and SCF of numbers, and we had started with decimal fractions as well. Other than that, we'll start with software engineering, and as well as we'll start with the chemistry of for you all. And so thank you, hope you enjoy this video. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and give a suggestion on the comment box. Please like, share and subscribe our channel, so that many and maximum people can get the information at once, and even though you can also enjoy the video as well. So thank you, hope you enjoy this video. If you like this video, please give a thumbs up and give a suggestion on a comment box. Thank you.